guys, it's Catherine Joy. Welcome back to my channel. If you don't recognize the background, it's because I'm in a vacation rental in Wyoming. We traveled here yesterday. It took us from 6:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the morning with the two kids, but they did great. And Elisha's out doing bachelor party stuff with all the guys all day today. And I was like, you know what? My kids are napping. I'm sitting here by myself. I might as well film that sleep training video that I've promised you guys months and months ago. My mom had 11 kids. All of us were sleep trained by 6 weeks, meaning we slept through the night at 6 weeks. She told me these tips, and so my two kids slept through the night at 8 weeks. I've never read a book on sleep training. I've never looked into how to sleep train a child. I just did what she did because it worked for her, and so far it has worked for me and my two kids. So when it comes to sleep, most people address the sleep issue, but sleeping is tied to feeding patterns. So if your child is feeding consistently, then their sleep cycles also become consistent. For the first 2 days, obviously, you're just nursing whenever you want. That colostrum's coming in. If your babies are underweight like mine, like around 5 pounds, then you might be waking them up throughout the night to feed. And no one's getting any sleep the first 2 weeks, okay? It's just the way it is. But on like day 3, when your milk starts coming in, try to get them on a feeding schedule. My mom uses what she calls the pinky trick and let them suck on it, or you could use a pacifier or anything else to stave them off. But my mom told me, she's like, Katie, do not nurse your baby until it's within 15 minutes of the schedule. That was starting out. Now Lucy's really consistent on a 3-hour schedule. And so if I need to go somewhere or if I need to do something, I will bump her forward or hold her off for a little bit. Now that she's older, I have a lot more freedom and flexibility. The reason why you want to get your baby on a schedule is because then you can anticipate what they need and they start developing natural sleeping patterns, which is super cool. They start finding, oh, okay, I'll nap at 10. Oh, I'll nap in the afternoon. They start to kind of figure that out by themselves those first few weeks. And it also is really helpful because they're used to being held off to nurse. They don't get a nurse whenever they demand it. And so then during the night, sometimes they'll wake up, cry, fuss for a few minutes, and then fall back asleep because they realize, well, I guess it's not time to nurse yet. Mama gets me consistently and helps me nurse. If they're used to demanding to be fed all throughout the day, then it's a lot easier to demand to be fed all throughout the night. When you're sticking to these feeding schedules, you might have to wake your baby up when they're sleeping, which is a bummer. I remember telling my mom, do I have to wake Leon up? Like, he's just sleeping so peacefully and I'm exhausted and I want to sleep. And she's like, Katie, you're gonna wish you did. Take their clothes off, rub their feet, maybe put their feet underwater to kind of wake them up. But even if they're drowsy or whatever, wake them up during the day. My midwives encouraged me to wake my baby up every few hours throughout the night. But as soon as they hit their birth weight, I stopped doing that and just let me know throughout the night when they wanted to nurse. Just like I woke my babies up to feed them throughout the day, I also would wake them up in the morning at the same time every morning. So for my mom, 7:30 was her time when she would wake the baby up and get started on the day. For me, I personally like to go in, wake Lucy up at 5:30, nurse her, lay her back down to bed, and have her get up around 8 o'clock. You're the mom, so you gotta choose what works for you, but getting your baby up at the same time every day will help their little bodies start getting on that same schedule so that they can anticipate that wake up time and you can anticipate that wake up time as well. One tip my mom gave me that was super helpful when it comes to naps or putting them to bed at night or whatever is don't nurse your baby to sleep or rock your baby to sleep or do anything to put them to sleep. Get them groggy, and then when they're in that groggy state, let them put themselves to sleep. This is super helpful because they start to learn that they need to put themselves to sleep. So if they wake up in the middle of the night or they wake up in the middle of a nap or something like that, they're confident that they can self-soothe themselves. If they don't know how to self-soothe, they're gonna scream until you come get them because they're dependent on you to soothe them and to put them back to sleep. Something people ask me a lot are, oh, do you use the cry it out method? I'm assuming that the cry it out method just means let your baby cry until they fall asleep. Yes and no. So when my baby is self-soothing herself to sleep, I do let her cry up to 15 minutes max because it does take them a little bit of time to start figuring out, okay, I want to be picked up. Oops, mom's not going to pick me up. I guess I'll just go to bed. But I'd never let him cry more than 15 minutes because you don't want to stress your baby out. You don't want to stress yourself out in your motherly emotions. And even though it's totally okay for a baby to cry, when it comes to crying, you have to learn your baby's cry. And I know you know that as a mom. Your baby can't talk, right? So all they can do is smile and coo or cry. Those are the only two ways that they can communicate with you. So crying can just mean, I don't want to go to sleep right now, or it can mean I'm hurt, or it can mean I'm stressed. So you have to learn your baby's cry and not just, oh, well, the book said let them cry it out for so long. If they're really stressed and freaking out, then yeah, they need you to comfort them. So the first few weeks when they're waking up every few hours, I'm nursing and then letting Lucy cry herself to sleep. Probably only about 5 minutes. So she's not screaming, she's not crying it out necessarily, but she might just be crying a little bit because she wants to still hang out with mommy. She thinks it's daytime, she doesn't want to go to sleep, but she's fed, she's not stressed, she's happy. Mommy's going to bed, you're going to bed. I forgot about this for about 1 week when Lucy was a few weeks old, and Lucy wanted to be up in the middle of the night. So I would nurse her, she'd be wide awake, just like looking all around, so I'd put her in the wrap, and I was walking around for like 2 hours at night. That is a nightmare. So I told my mom, I was like, I'm walking Lucy around for 2 hours at night. She's like, are you letting her cry at all? I'm like, no. She's like, well, lay her down, let her cry for a few minutes, see if she'll put herself to sleep. The first night, she put herself to sleep within 5 minutes. Once they sleep through the night one time, they can do it. They can absolutely do it. They aren't starving. They don't need you to feed them. They just want you to feed them. So at that point, if they're waking up in the middle of the night after they've already slept through the night one time, I know you can do it now. Just thinking back to a few months ago with Lucy, I would nurse her every 3 hours during the day. The only exception is when it came to nighttime. Say I want to put her to bed at 9 o'clock, I would kind of cluster feed. She kind of fusses, wiggles for a little bit, puts herself to sleep. Then at around 11, when I go to bed, I wake her up, do a little dream feed, top her off, lay her back down to bed. She'll sleep at that point probably until around 5 or 3 or whatever. You know, they start to gradually make that stretch longer. One tip that I want to leave you with too for afternoon naps, kids have a 45-minute sleep cycle for their naps. So if you let him sleep those 45 minutes, he'll wake up and fuss. You'll think it's time to get him up, but let him fuss for about 5 minutes and he'll probably put himself to bed. I thought that was super helpful if you want your kids to nap longer, to remember that they have that little 45-minute sleep cycle. They might not be totally ready to get up, although they sound like it. Give them a few minutes and see if they will self-soothe and put themselves back to bed. So something that is super controversial that I personally do is I let my babies sleep on their tummies. With Leon, I started out sleeping him on his back. He would cry and fuss and didn't like it, and I realized it was because often he had gas in his tummy for whatever reason, and when I would flip him on his tummy, it put that pressure on his stomach and he liked it a lot better and he would instantly go to sleep. It's a lot easier for them to find their fingers and kind of suck on those if they're teething or if they're fussy or if they're upset. That's an easy way for them to self-soothe. But I found that also when they're on their tummy, it has the same effect as a swaddle. Say they're laying on their back and they freak out in the middle of the night, you know, they kind of do that and they're like, for whatever reason. A swaddle, right, keeps them close. It's the exact same thing when they're laying on their tummy. They can't freak out. So their arms are just like this and then they just stay like that. Anyway, so I personally sleep my babies on their tummy. That's what my mom's done as well. It's worked really well for us, but you have to do what you think is right for you and your baby. Because if you are stressing out that your baby's sleeping on their tummy or their back or in a swaddle or out of a swaddle or with their pacifier or with their thumb or whatever, then you aren't going to be able to get sleep anyways, and that's the whole point of this whole business. Obviously, when teething comes around, their teeth are going to really hurt. They're going to start waking up a couple times through the night again, going and soothing them, maybe nursing them, giving them a little bit of a bottle or something like that is probably going to be necessary. But I will say that it's absolutely 100% possible to sleep totally through the night, many, many, many nights in a row after having kids. I can count on one hand the amount of nights I have been up with both kids after that first 6 to 8 week stage where they're newborn and they're trying to figure out their day and their night schedule. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I know I was just kind of rambling there, spewing out random facts about sleep training. I just took 20 minutes of footage, so hopefully I will be able to go edit this down into a way that it makes sense. But if this was helpful for you, then please give it a thumbs up. If you would like your baby to sleep through the night, give it a thumbs up. And if I did not explain the answers to all your questions, please leave them down below and I will get back to you. Some people are really opposed to scheduling and they think you shouldn't schedule a baby, but personally, I just think it gives you a lot more freedom because I know, oh, okay, I can leave the house for this amount of time and then this is when I have to be back. Or they're fussing. It's not because they're hungry, because they don't eat for another hour and a half. So it's probably a dirty diaper or they're teething. It also makes it a dream for babysitters because you can tell the babysitter exactly when they take their naps and exactly when they go to bed at night. I think the baby's just a lot more comfortable when they know what to expect instead of just constantly being demanding. And it is a huge blessing for me, let me tell you that, because I get awesome sleep. I sleep so well through the night. And I have 2 very little kids. So just to recap, the feeding schedules are tied to the sleeping schedule. So if your baby isn't sleeping through the night, maybe try addressing the feeding side of things and getting them on a schedule there. Use maybe a pinky or a pacifier to hold them off until they feed. Try to always get them up at the same time in the morning. Never let them cry for more than around 15 minutes. Babies will typically self-soothe, so put them down when they're drowsy instead of when they are asleep. And help them self-soothe by giving them maybe 5 or 10 minutes of just fussing if they don't go to bed instantly, because they will gradually learn to put themselves back to sleep. Learn what their cry means. Once they sleep through the night one time, they can sleep through the night. They aren't going to be starving. So give them a little bit more time to try to put themselves back to sleep. Give them a dream feed before you go down. Kids typically have a 45-minute sleep cycle. And there's my tips for sleep training your baby or just teaching them to sleep through the night right off the bat. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And if you are my subscribers, thank you so much. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what videos would you like to see. I hope you all have an awesome week and I will see you soon. Sweet dreams.